Good evening, St. Augustine, and welcome to another Mikeless edition to the Mike Davis Show. We have a very special night here tonight. We have ladies' night in the studio, so, we should have brought cocktails, but I forgot. My bad. I dropped the ball. But before we get into how much fun that is going to be, we're going to pay some bills. I've got some shopping to do for the show later, so we definitely need to get some money for Mike so that he can pay me. A to Z Roofing and Waterproofing. They offer free estimates and have been serving St. Johns County for over 20 years in the construction industry. A to Z offers painted metal roofs for saltwater area homes with warranties for up to 25 years. They also offer shingle roofs with warranties up to 50 years. They install tile roofing, cedar shake shingles, designer roofing, and flat roof coverings. Recent job photos with material descriptions can be seen at A to Z Roofing and Waterproofing.com. Check out Chuck McCone's team for all of your roofing needs. We also have Solomon Services. They are a premier place for personal training in St. Augustine. They specialize in small group athletic and fitness development. They have athletic development for team and individual sports performance, sports injury-related training. State-of-the-art center offers indoor and outdoor turf areas. All coaches are certified through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. You can call and make an appointment today, 904-461-9945, or visit their website, solomonservices.com, and you can sign up today. Although I don't think you can see Sal again until Mike is back, because I think they're surfing together in parts unknown. All right, we've got Powell Heating and Air Conditioning. They are dedicated to customer service, and that is evident in everything that they do. For the 39 years they have been a locally owned business. From the moment they answer your call until the time they leave your home, they are working to make you comfortable and confident about the care and service you receive from Powell. With their fleet of 10 plus trucks and a 15,000 square foot warehouse stocked with parts and equipment, they are ready to serve you around the clock. They service all heating and air conditioning brands, and their emergency service is always open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, including nights, weekends, and holidays. So check out Powell Heating and Air Conditioning for all of your comfort needs. Now, if you haven't planned dinner tonight, maybe join the Tringali family for dinner. You can either eat with them at Carmelo's Pizzeria or at 123 Burger House. Carmelo's Pizzeria was voted best pizza 9 years in a row. They've got New York style brick oven pizza. They serve salads, subs, wings, and more. Or 123 Burger House. They were voted best burgers 3 years plus. Burgers, chickens, wings, salads, authentic wood-fired pizza, and ice cream. Both restaurants offer dine-in, takeout, and delivery through Bite Squad and Grubhub. The Tringali family would love to share dinner with you tonight. All right, we have paid the bills. We've talked a lot about all of the events coming up, so we're going to kind of leave that today, because today I want to highlight women-owned businesses in St. Augustine, specifically St. Johns County at large. So I have a list of amazing female entrepreneurs and their businesses, and we're just going to run through that. We've got Amy Upchurch. She runs Pink Stork. It's an amazing business that helps support female health and maternity. We have Renee Unsworth, totally St. Augustine. She's making St. Augustine accessible to locals and visitors. We have Colleen Messner here in St. Augustine with the Spice and Tea Exchange, and she is making sure your food is tasty. We've got Kathleen Miner. She's been on the network a bunch of times with Hopeful Handbags. She does amazing work to help support women who are trying to start a new life, a new chapter in their lives, get into a better situation. We love Kathleen Miner. We also love Nicole Nettles. She's Blue Water Jewelers. I have lots of pieces from Blue Water Jewelers. So Nicole has been a friend of mine for years, helping me to sparkle a little bit more. And one of my friends that has been on numerous times, Susan Lieberman with Sailbird Distilling, but two of our most frequent and beloved ladies in the studio who have their own businesses. They're killing it as female entrepreneurs in St. Augustine. We've got Stephanie Hollis from Stik. Everyone say hi to Stephanie. And we also have Susan Swearingen, our friend from WildHeart Boutique. We love having both of you back. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. When I heard it was going to be ladies' night, I was all in.
I know. It's going to be fun. I think we're going to have a great conversation because I'm sort of at the beginning stages of being a female entrepreneur. I still kind of see myself as wife and mother, but I run a couple of businesses. They're small, very, very small micro businesses. But I would love to tap into some wisdom from some ladies that are really doing amazing work in the industries where you work. But I know that you have I feel like we all kind of have stories. We came to it maybe accidentally, maybe completely unintentionally. So I kind of want to go into that. Stephanie, can you start telling us a little bit about your previous life?
Absolutely. Yeah, my previous life was definitely not entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
I went to medical school, became an anesthesiologist, and how I ended up being an entrepreneur is marrying an entrepreneur accidentally.
Yeah.
I had no idea my husband was an entrepreneur. It really wasn't even a word 25 years ago as much. I don't feel like that was a thing. And when we moved to St. Augustine in 2004, as a doctor, obviously I could bring home the bacon, so to speak. So I said, just do something that you love. And that was my number one thing, is do something that's going to bring you joy and lift you up. And he decided he wanted to open his own business. And I thought, okay, I don't know anything about that, but that sounds great. Okay. And before I knew it, I was stepping in to help him with areas where he wasn't as strong, where I had some strength and some knowledge. And we just started working together. And 20 years later, now I'm running Solar Stik.
Right.
and sitting at the head of the company, and he's our main innovator. The innovation and invention is his strength, and kind of I'm the integrator. I'm the one that really helps make all of the infrastructure work, and that's just been a combination of the things I learned in medicine, things I learned in the business of medicine, which is a business most people don't realize it is a business. They don't teach you anything about the business when you're
really
in medical school, but it is a business, so you learn quickly, or not. And and I've just been exploring. So when I first started being called an entrepreneur, I was like, who are they talking about? But I realized just in the way he and I have gone through life and lived, that's just really how we are kind of, that is our normal path, right? We just I was not a very good employee ever. I've ruffled a lot of feathers, and so I'm much better owning my own business and running my own business. And if I fail, I fail, and which you do a lot as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. You fail a lot because that's how you learn.
Absolutely. And so, Susan, I was doing some research on you because we've talked a few times, but I think I know a little bit less about your story than I knew about Stephanie's.
Yeah.
And it turns out you were featured in Wall Street Journal. How did that go? Because you get interviewed by a reporter, and then you're the feature picture, right?
Right. I was. So let me tell you the story about that. So I started in corporate. So I had a 25-year career doing consulting and just traveling around the world, and very structured.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I really liked being in with a lot of people, and we were doing a lot of cool things, very intelligent group of people. And I burned out.
Yeah.
I burned out really bad. And I mean, it was so bad that I just really couldn't continue. And so I actually went into a cognitive behavioral therapy program. I mean, I was like, couldn't get out of bed, burnt out, like serious. And, it was through that experience of rebuilding myself that I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is really like a portal into the next part of my life. And out of that came, I left my corporate job, and out of that, I was also practicing yoga for a very long time. So I started teaching yoga. I ran a yoga business. I started learning and teaching mindfulness. And through that work, I was doing some work with the University of San Diego, has this awesome Center for Mindfulness program.
Okay.
Wow.
And they had hired me to do like business work for them, but I was also learning how to teach. It was really a great situation.
Awesome.
And so the Wall Street Journal must go to certain institutions and say, hey, we're doing a piece, do you have someone? So they recommended me, and which was so cool. I was with other women in this article, and the picture that's on the article is me doing tree pose up high in a tree.
It is a really cool picture.
Like, it's really cool.
That's awesome.
I didn't know at the time. I mean, it was my picture. I didn't know it was going to be seen by anybody. But what's so funny about it is that the actual title of the article is called The Virtuous Midlife Crisis. Okay. Now, I didn't know that.
So I found it. Do you want me to show people?
Oh, sure.
I would love to see it.
I didn't realize that I was the face of the virtuous midlife crisis, which is okay. I was just a little bit like, okay, maybe I did have a crisis.
Well, it's also like,
it is. Yeah.
You know, why are you putting that on my journey?
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's just not the lens you see yourself going through.
I didn't know I was having a crisis, but now I do.
Maybe
Thank you.
I was. And so I really took that as an opportunity to say, it's okay for whatever you want to call it. And that was and is a milestone marker for me in my journey. You know, I think being in my 50s, life changes.
It does.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
And I had just started WildHeart Boutique. So which was really cool because I was able to get that in the article because I'm like, I want St. Augustine, Florida. I'm, in St. Augustine, Florida for Chicago, and now I'm here. And so that part of my journey, kind of having this very structured, really kind of traditional career, and then ending up doing something that I had no plans for at all. I loved fashion. I mean, I dare say I was probably one of the better dressed people on my teams.
Of course.
But it wasn't it's kind of funny because sometimes I wish I could have a different story. Like, no, I wanted to be in the fashion business my whole life.
Yeah.
But it's not true.
Yeah.
What happened was that this was a channel for me to be in the community. And when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. It was really a leap. It was a big leap of let's try this. It feels good. It feels like there's a community here. How am I going to get into it? And so this was the channel that I felt would be good. It ticked off a few boxes. It was with women. I really wanted to work with women. I wanted to work with women that are very engaged in the community, women that are, we're all going through our own things. Like you said it yourself, we have our stories. Each of us has our stories. So I was very open to that. And so, and I wanted to learn how to run my own business. I mean, be careful what you ask for.
Yes, you will get it in spades.
Right,
yes,
Stephanie? I mean,
absolutely.
What the entrepreneur, I didn't look up the definition entrepreneur until like now, when you were like, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship. And I was like, okay,
cool.
What's the real definition?
Is that what we do?
Is that right? I'm like, gosh, I didn't, sometimes you think that you're really prepared and you're not. I wasn't. I mean, I had the background, like you, the business of medicine. You definitely have a feeling. But you get into it, and then you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's where the fun and the learning and the failures come in. So that's been my journey to where I am now, which I would have never planned.
No.
Never have even guessed.
No.
Same with you? You wouldn't
Same
have
with
guessed.
me. I would never have guessed. And really, I look back in figuring out, like, how did we get here? How did I get here? Because I didn't even grow up knowing I wanted to be a doctor. I mean, that wasn't my story. I figured out, like, my last year of college that I had a gift that would be good to set me up for success in medical school. And then so I've always found my journeys by just trying to listen to what am I enjoying? What am I good at? What am I not enjoying? Because one thing, for whatever reason in life, as I was growing up, when I interacted with people who hated their jobs or really disliked, I thought that was so sad because even as a young person, because they go, oh, you'll understand when you get older. But I still maintain life is too short. And if you genuinely dislike what you're doing, like whatever job you've ended up with, you're like, I am finding no joy in this, whatever it is. You are not stuck. Like, you are not stuck. It might take time to get to something different, but you're not stuck. And so I just always promise myself, I'm like, I will never be that person, that misery and job, because that's horrible. And so, and I think that, in pursuing these different businesses, I've I've not known. I had an interior design business for several years, and I had to set that aside when Solar Stik became my full-time, because it is full-time right now. But that, I'll do something else. I never saw myself being in the same job until I retired at 65 and then sit in the recliner. Like, that's just never been my goal. My goal has just been to enjoy life and learn and have fun and help other people, right? In whatever aspect, because you do help, even in helping them get dressed, and feel good about themselves. You're providing a service, and serving others is just awesome. And we all do it in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now I'm at this really cool point in life at 50 where I look back and I go, oh yeah, I've been figuring out how to run a business for 20 years, accidentally. Right? I've figured out a lot. I've taught myself QuickBooks. I've taught myself a lot of skills that I just had to figure it out. And I'm enjoying now the opportunity to give back to when a woman comes and says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Do you have any advice for me? I love that because I wish I had had more mentors, to help me at the time. I didn't know what I needed. So I'm enjoying that part now of gathering some women that have expressed. I'm really curious to hear about kind of what you're searching and doing.
So my story is kind of funky. I mean, I have like this weird resume because I knew I was going to be a dolphin trainer. I knew I was one of the millions of young girls that knew I wanted to be a dolphin trainer. Right. And so all of my education was super focused on getting to that goal as fast as I could, to the point of I needed 3 credits to graduate high school. And I went to my guidance counselor and I was like, I need 3 credits. I was at the end of my junior year. It's like, I don't want to waste a year. What can I do? Can I test out? Can I do summer school and be done? Graduate early? How can I do that? And dual enrollment was just starting to be a thing. Nobody knew about it at that point. I qualified for the program, but she didn't want to recommend it at first. She's like, what's going on? Who's being mean to you? Who hurt you? Get out of here. Why are you running? And I'm like, I'm not running away from something. I'm running towards something. It's my best friend was moving. My boyfriend was moving. I was like, all of my ties to social stuff in high school are kind of loosening. So I'm running towards my goal and I just don't want to waste a year.
Good for you.
And so I did dual enrollment. I got hired. I graduated early from college as a result. I got hired at Marineland right out of school. So that's what brought me to this part of the state. I grew up in Florida, but I wasn't on this coast. And so I was a dolphin trainer and I was going to be a lifer. Right. And what I had seen in my internships in my early career is that you're either less than 5 years or you're in it forever until you retire. And that was kind of the trajectory. And so I was like, I'm going to retire in this position. These are my babies. I'm home. Right. Well, dolphins are amazing. I didn't love the environment that I was in. I loved playing with the dolphins. I loved communicating with guests and educating guests about the dolphins, but I didn't love the just the work. It's a very high competitive nature sort of industry, and it's typically only males at the top and usually childless males at the top because the women are the ones that get married, have babies, and they're out earlier. So it's not as many and those were my goals. I wanted to get married and have babies. And so I'm like, well, what's my path forward here? And it really came down to, I don't want to work in this hyper competitive environment that's not taking the cognitive behavioral things we know for our animals and raising up staff in that same way.
Sure.
And so that was just my experience. It's different staff now. But I didn't want to continue in that trajectory. And so I stepped out, and that was really scary for me. I felt like a failure because everyone knew I was going to be a dolphin trainer. Everyone gave me dolphin stuff from the time I was a child. So that has led me down this weird path of discovery where I've been the sample girl. I've helped other people open their businesses. And now I'm sort of self-taught I was trained a little bit on podcast producing. And then I had to teach myself everything else because COVID shut down everything. And I was the only one that knew how to get us live and online
that
at the church.
Your learning,
and so I went from a children's minister at the church to a podcast producer real fast. Wow. I was an essential worker, and so I was allowed to come, and that's the only way anything happened that went at our church was I had to figure it out. And that was scary and stressful, and I lost hair. Like it literally fell out.
But you leaned into the challenge. And see, I think that's one thing that entrepreneurs have in common is you get restless in the structure. You get restless in the organization of this is how things are. And you lean into that restlessness and listen to your inner voice. And I love it when somebody tells me I can't do something because I go, oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, I had a college professor tell me I couldn't get into medical school with the degree I was pursuing. I was like, oh, watch me. And I did, and I had anesthesiologists partners that told me I couldn't practice anesthesia the way I essentially transitioned to more of a part-time kind of, I would work when I wanted to work because I was doing the dual running a business with my husband and doing this. And I said, no, I'm going to pick and choose my work. And they said, oh, you can't do that. I said, I can do it. I can do whatever I put my mind to, right? That's how I was raised. And so, and leaning into that fear of, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And you will, right? That's that's the secret sauce, I think, is just being willing to fall on your face and fail and figure it out. And hopefully you don't fall on your face too many times, right? And you stumble into, or you trial and error your way into the right answer. And then you learn from somebody else's mistakes, which is a good way to do it too.
Yes.
That's why I think it's great for us all to communicate, is go like, boy, if I could share some of the things that I wish I didn't have to learn the hard way with other women in particular, because that's my tribe,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's wonderful.
I think even your story of the willingness to let go of whatever that identity you had created for yourself, because that happens for us. We are in a certain part of life and you're really dedicated to something. And we can really get wrapped up in that. We can kind of start to really truly identify with it, and that's real, and that's something to be celebrated because you're committed. But then it's like that loosening, and whatever the reason is, to willingness to say, actually, that's not what I want to do right now, and it's not really going to serve me. And then to take, that's that leap that you're talking about. And sometimes you don't know what you're leaping to. But I think, whether or not you call it entrepreneurial spirit, maybe it is. It's some kind of spirit. It's a learning spirit. It's a willingness to evolve. And I think that's the part that is really to be celebrated. Because sometimes we get hung up on, and I do too, like, well, what's it going to look like? Well, what am I going to do? What am I going to say to people? They're going to ask me, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, I don't know. I know. I mean, I'm trying this and I'm trying this. But you know what? That's a beautiful place to be. Because that's a learning place. And that, what you said, is discovery. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of room for that. There should be more room for that.
Absolutely.
Because you have gifts and talents. We all have gifts and talents. And that's what is wanting to come through. Yeah. It's wanting to come out and manifest itself in a certain way.
Exactly.
I 100% was going to be a dolphin trainer, and my kids were going to go to public school because I was definitely not going to be a homeschool mom. And homeschooling I thought was terrible when I was in my late teens, early 20s. And then I became a homeschool mom who works also. And so that led into an educational business. It's a tutoring business.
Oh,
and
nice.
So it's kind of these weird prongs. But I have found that things that I learned as a dolphin trainer, things that I've learned throughout my various jobs, have informed how I act, how I learn, how I'm driven, and the paths that I'm currently on. So how has your past life informed your current life?
Yeah, I mean, It without a doubt does. And I even find myself even more grateful for the experiences that I've had in the past. And even some of those experiences that I kind of thought, this is a waste of my time, or I'm going to forget about that. I can move on. It's like, no, actually, a lot of those learnings resurface later on. And so for me, for running a business, I mean, it's everything. It was everything. It was the relationships. It was the creation of a process. It was all the little things that sometimes I thought were really rote. And I just, like you mentioned, we don't want to do things. There are things I didn't want to do, but I did it. And then now I'm like, oh, thank goodness I did that. Because now I actually know how to write a business plan. I actually know how to learn QuickBooks, or I have that ability to learn.
Yeah.
And so that I carry forward. And I think the other thing that's really, really critical was my ability that I learned through my career was the ability to really listen and talk to people. I mean, that's kind of cliche. People say,
but it's important.
Communication. I'm like, but that might be almost everything.
And
it
it's
might be
rare.
It is pretty much
so
everything.
rare.
It all comes back to absolutely relate. I mean, my husband, talks about it all the time, but a successful business boils down to building good relationships and making good decisions and learning from the mistakes you make. And I'm sure my team members are probably tired of all of my medical analogies because I do. I spent 20 years as a practicing physician, which I loved. I loved that career, and there were so many things I loved about it. But I also knew it was a season in my life. So I was fortunate in that I wasn't overly hung up in that identity.
Yeah.
I miss it some, and I still have a few people call me doc, and it makes me feel good. But yeah, the learning that I did just about how to, a good bedside manner comes into how you take care of people in your business world.
I love that you say that. I just feel, because I can feel that from you. And I think no matter what the business is, there's a certain amount of humanity and compassion, maybe a lot of amounts of humanity and compassion, because really we're all trying to do the same thing. It may be in a different format, like you're selling something very different than I'm selling, but the truth is we're not really selling. We're serving, we're servicing something. And I always say that it's not about the clothes. Like it's just not. I mean, I have a bunch of them.
It's just a tool.
It's a tool. It's kind of the way that it's your entry point to having those relationships and then helping someone go further in what they want to do. And that's what I really resonate when you say that, even in your medical terminology. It's cool.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. No, it's the deeper, especially with Solar Stik specifically, the deeper we've gotten into the business, the more we've realized that it is just a tool for serving the community.
Cool.
It's enabled us to do some really great things locally. It's enabled us to hire dozens of people, and then we help those people build families and help them become better people and grow them as people in the community and teach them things. And it's just a really cool big picture. If you go like, what have I done in this world? And I've worked hard, and you never stop working hard. I mean, owning a business, I laugh when you probably, both of you get this, when you tell somebody you own a business and they go, oh, how nice. They go,
you're like,
says no one who ever owned a business, because your work hours are 24/7, 365, because they go, oh, you own a business, you can do whatever you want. And you go, if you still want to keep owning a business, you really don't. You don't get to do whatever you want.
Make your
and
hours.
That's okay, right? My husband and I, we are business partners and marriage partners. And you know what? We talk business almost every evening like you're not supposed to do, but we do because we understand. And then we go, okay, no more. We have little boundaries we build. Boundaries was my buzzword for the last couple of years. I'm working on those. But so you do, though. You learn and you grow and you realize that the business, it started out with you leaning into your talent and leaning into the passion that, you had. But it becomes bigger than that, and it becomes opportunity to serve people and to do more than you thought.
What I'm really seeing from both of you and your journey and your passion and what you're doing is that you're really in the business of empowerment. You're really all about empowering those around you, whether that be your customers, whether that be your staff or the people that are working shoulder to shoulder with you on the journey, and others that are around you that need the help. I mean, even though your businesses are so different, the reason I thought that you two would be good together is because you really are in the business of empowerment. And that's very powerful. I want to speak to something that you mentioned before, Stephanie, that you are not a great employee.
No.
And the reason I want to bring that up is because what I found when I've been in management positions is that I had to be really intentional in how I spoke to people so as to not come off in a way that I didn't intend. And I would watch, because I'm a behavior girl, I watch behaviors, and behavior modification was kind of my area of study. And so I always thought it was interesting that if I addressed the people that I worked with the same way that the male managers did, it was a very different response. And so there's a fine line between like really, stepping into the authority that you've been trusted with and leading your team and being a bitch.
Oh, yes. Yes.
To put it frankly, and I'm sorry for the language, but that's really how I feel like that's a struggle that women have that men don't have.
Absolutely.
So how have you,
because
y'all encountered that?
The men are assertive, but you're aggressive.
Yeah.
And absolutely. And in medicine, I mean, I was, as an anesthesiologist, I entered a field where 10% were represented by women. So it's very much a boys' club.
Yeah.
Being in the operating room is very much a boys' club still. But so I was used to that dynamic to some degree.
Yeah.
And I found a balance with, number one, I lean toward being pretty empathic anyway, sometimes too much.
Yeah.
It can be a bit paralyzing. But always trying to picture in the other person's shoes and really look at it from their standpoint, because there are people that, men have behavioral patterns just like women have behavior patterns. It doesn't make it good or bad. It just is what it is, right? And we're all creatures of how we were raised and the environment. So I've personally, and it can be a hot button issue, I guess, with women in business and strong women and women empowerment and all of this kind of stuff. I found what I think is a good balance where, yes, I get treated differently as a woman, 100%.
Yeah.
What makes me unique is what makes me get treated differently than my husband or whatever. And that it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I try to strike that balance of I acknowledge it and I'm aware of it, but I try not to let it inform how I react. And I try not to let it get in the way of doing the work. So I try to strike that balance. I happen to be a woman. And yes, I'm a woman-owned business, but it's not my main focus. And because I see it sometimes work, and I'm going to try to walk this delicately here. I can see it work against people where they're so aware of how the differences between how men and women can get treated in different businesses, different levels of leadership. They're so aware of that they're missing the focus of just getting the work done and being the best you can be. Like I've always been the most competitive with myself to be the best I can be. I happen to be a woman.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand I have different barriers to overcome as a result of that, but I try not to let it be a crutch or let it be something that makes an excuse. If I fail, maybe I failed because I didn't do it good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I've been held back because of a woman in some, but I don't let that be my crutch. I ignore it. I go, whatever, I'm still going to do it. And I think that for me, that's been a good balance because yes, and I just try to be a really good role model for other women because I've been in instances where other women didn't lift me up and it made me sad. They didn't pull me up and go, hey, you're like me and let's do this together. They, a different generation kind of tended to not be as good to their fellow women. So I just try to be a good example and say, you got this. And I don't focus too much on everything's because I'm a woman. Okay. But men have their own stuff they have to deal with too. And so, that's kind of my approach is, I happen to be a woman. So what? Moving on.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, and I would add, I mean, in my career in business, I was typically the only woman. I mean, at that time, now demographics have changed.
Sure.
But I was in positions where a lot of times I was the one that was leading the meetings, and they were mostly men. So it's an interesting dynamic to think about, right? If I became very aware of, oh my gosh, I'm a woman in this boardroom of men, and I have the power. It's like I don't think I really thought that. I mean, I feel that I agree with you. I feel that yes, I am who I am. I look the way I look, and that's just how it is. I mean, I did early on. I had to kind of think about that. I had to play with, well, what am I going to dress? How do I do my hair? How do I speak? And after a while, I was like, no, that's just so much work to not be me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if I don't fit, I don't fit. And what I was finding was that actually I was a lot of times, and I was in a very tech-heavy company, so a lot of times I was the one that was saying things that other people weren't saying. Or I was the one that could, actually get out how people were actually thinking and feeling because of my personality. And I don't know, is that because I'm a woman? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I think even being an empathic, or the ability to read behind what someone is looking at or what someone's saying, there's some real skill there. And I really made my career off that, really. I was very good at that, very good at pulling out someone that really wasn't maybe speaking up or helping to facilitate, okay, well, the opposite points of view, because a lot of domination would happen in those kind of situations. And I felt like that's a cool skill that I bring. And so I'm going to bring that fully. And I definitely think that being a woman, being a mom, I mean, I was, in the early 2000s, I was in the late 90s, I'm the one pumping milk in the bathroom. In between a corporate meeting, having my suit on. That's crazy.
Yeah, I did that too.
Right. You do what you got to do. And do I think that held me back in certain ways? Yeah, but at the end of the day, did I really want to be a partner? Did I really, truly want to be a partner in that business and not have the time with my children? Well, the answer is no.
Yeah.
So there's a whole other conversation around, okay, is that fair or not? But the truth of the matter is, the way that it was then was I wasn't willing to live that kind of life to get that kind of position and that kind of organization.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I was making a decision to not go up the ranks.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
And look where you are now.
Yeah. I mean, I had what I wanted. I did what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I don't really, there's some days where I might feel sorry for myself. Yeah. I'll be honest. Where I'm like, this didn't work. Why is it? Why, what is this? Could it be all these things? And after a while, it's like, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You can find out all the reasons you think it is, but at the end of the day, you got to get back up. And that's the spirit that we're talking about, entrepreneurial spirit of, no one is going to solve this for you. I used to have people I could delegate it to. Yeah. I mean, I loved that. But you come out, give me 3 suggestions, figure out the problem. And now I'm like looking at myself going, no, you're the one that has to clean the floors.
Yep.
And you got to solve the problem.
Right.
So what are you going to do?
Exactly.
And there's some that is very empowering because that's self-empowering.
Yeah.
And so as you get to that place, then you are coming from a place of empowering others. And I think that's one thing that being a self-employed, run business, I can get to deeper than I could in a corporate situation because I've had to build this. I'm the one that's on the hook. And so when I build that, I get a sense of, oh, okay, I get it now, and I've learned these lessons. And that's when it comes in to say, if there are other people out there doing this, I am an open book. I will share whatever I can share because I see that that's where the real power is not just in what I'm doing, but it's back to that relationship. It's back to that community building. And I think, personally, I think women are really good at that.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, as a whole, I feel like we naturally gravitate towards that. I don't feel, it's not hard for me to be vulnerable with people. And I feel like, again, that's a skill, and I think that's something that is a really big open door for doing more of what we want to do in the community even.
Yeah. So, I mean, historically, we kind of think of women as having the place in the home. But if they were the homemaker, even if they, regardless of what level they were as far as social class, running a home is not a one focus. It's so many different focus points that are spread out across. And if you have like a larger home where you have staff in your home, now you have to manage staff and there's a lot that goes into it. So it seems like we're a little more adept to being able to multitask.
I think so.
Than maybe our male counterparts.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And being in
we have to manage a lot
Yeah.
automatically and have to tune in to everybody's feelings and perceptions and what's not being said and
It's kind
absolutely.
of an unseen, isn't it? That whole role is kind of an unseen role.
Yeah.
I think as women, we know that happens, but it's an intangible, but yet it's so critical.
Yeah.
Right. But I agree. I mean, my goodness, think about all the things that you manage in a day and all the different parts in your life. I mean, there's no task list that I could ever had that had every single task. I mean, can you imagine?
No.
I know.
Yes,
You can't.
very
There's
true.
in the depths
No.
of your mind, there's all these millions of tasks that are happening at any given time.
Absolutely.
I think
So-
you've hit on something.
How do you keep it all straight though? I mean, so like I said, I'm homeschool mom. I have this giant massive planner that
Ooh, it's
this
pretty. I
has.
like it.
So this has
my
lesson plans in
goodness.
it. That's what the numbered things are. It has our life,
Yeah.
and that's the months, and then I've got podcast stuff, and I've got my education business in the back. Like everything's in this because I have to see it. That's the way I process things. Is I can put the pieces together if I can see it. If it's all just Heather's, yes, it's a happy planner.
Yes.
So I've had to like pull together these tools, and it's funny that I did a photo minor. The class I hated the most was digital photography. So I'm like, I'm gonna take pictures. I'm not gonna like color on my pictures. This is a waste of my time. It's the class I use 100% more than anything else. It's the one that
that's
I
fantastic.
hated. And so I've had to like modify things to make it work for my life because my life's just weird. It's not normal. I imagine you ladies have the same sort of
Yep.
balancing a million things. How do you keep it straight?
Yeah. And I think the ideal of the work-life balance.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's one of those fairy tales that we beat ourselves up with.
Yeah, for
At
sure.
least for me. I've gained a lot of comfort through there's a great book by a woman named Courtney Carver called Soulful Simplicity.
Okay.
And I've been living with MS for 22 years now, and she's the same. And she discovered that part of her health journey requires life to be a lot more simple than it used to be.
Okay.
So in simplifying some of my life in terms of what do I choose to do and what do I choose not to do, or what did I used to do, but I'm going to you know what? I'm not doing that anymore because it's just too much. And giving myself permission to stop doing those things. You know what? I used to always do this, but I'm not going to do that anymore. And it's okay. I'm not that person anymore. I have my calendar on my iPhone. Everything goes in my calendar.
Yep.
Appointments, meetings. If it's not in my calendar,
It ain't happening.
it doesn't. And that relieves me of having to try to remember.
Yeah.
Like, don't forget you have this thing. Even if it's something like send an email to this person. If I really need to remember to do it, I'll put it in my calendar to remind me, come do the podcast at 5 o'clock, get there by 4:45.
Yeah.
And that has relieved that stress of, forgetting and feeling bad and responsible. And as women, one of our challenges, because we want to do all the things and we're people pleasers by nature, learning when to say no.
Yeah.
It has been a big help for me, and just telling people you know what, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now.
Yeah.
I would love to, but if I'm going to do something, I want to do it 110%, and I just can't give it to you. So I deal with that a lot. I tend to be fairly direct with people, but that is what it is too. But I'll tell people when they approach me and they want something from me, I'll say, listen, I can give you money, donation wise. I can provide money. I can't give you my time. So if that will help, we can have this conversation.
Yep.
But if you want my time, I just don't have it right now.
Yeah.
And it's, when you put boundaries up around your time and that I think is where the work-life balance really exists, is just that you're choosing how to spend your energy and your time. And, I'm in a season right now where I get sleep. That is what my body needs right now in this lovely 50s decade. Is sleep is a vital health benefit for me. And so I forgive myself for not getting up at 5 a.m. to go running anymore. Yeah. Just not doing it. And I refuse to feel guilty about it.
Thank you. Yes.
Right? I wake up when I'm ready to wake up, and and I've structured my life. And the great thing about being an entrepreneur and a business owner is you're like, this is my rule. I'm going to do this because it's important.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That's kind of where I am right now.
And I really like your references to seasons, because I think, for you, Amanda, you are in a different season.
Yeah.
You have children that are younger, and that is going to require something different as you are doing. I mean, the planner, I think that's a real testament to what you need to be doing. And I just want to say that because, as you go through seasons, the same things don't work the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really true. I have invested in every single time management system. I have the Franklin planner. I have the Covey planner. I mean,
all of them.
All of them. I taught them. Like, I was a productivity person.
Yes.
And then
read all the books.
Read all
the books.
First things first. I mean, all those, right? And then I wasn't.
Yeah.
And then it was like, you're not going to do that anymore. And so I loosened that. And I think for me, the calendar, I love that because I do the same thing because I don't want it to take my brain space.
Yeah.
But I think what's really interesting, and if you haven't listened to anything by Oliver Berkman, was truly a productivity expert. And he's kind of flipped the script. And he's like, I noticed that I was really productive, and I always felt like when I get all these things done, then I'm going to get there. And that never happens.
It's a myth. It's a total myth.
That work-life balance shit.
That catching up.
Oh, yeah.
There's no such thing. You don't do it.
Right. When was the one time that you're like, wow,
I'm all caught up?
Did it all.
Yeah.
You don't.
No.
Because that's not probably our way of being anyway.
Yeah.
So I think don't miss your life. That's my thing, is to stop and just to pause. And especially in the moments of crazy, I'm like, just open your eyes, look and see what's around you. And there's so many things that will bring you back into the present moment. You'll usually know what to do. You usually will know what's needed to be done. And most of the time, it wasn't an emergency.
Yeah, that's hard to learn.
That's
the fake
hard to learn
emergency.
because we all run on that. We run on the reactivity. Our adrenaline is high. Our cortisol is high. It's, our bodies, we've taught ourselves to be that way.
Yeah.
And I think in this season of life, the virtuous midlife crisis, it did teach me something. It taught me that it's time to change. And do I keep it all straight? No. Do I get everything done that I need to? No, I don't. I mean, I'm here to tell you, I have tasks, 1 week it's on paper, another week it's on my notes. I mean, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because my goal right now is different. It is to actually remind myself to enjoy what I'm doing in that moment and to have faith. That's where, for me, the faith of what needs to be done will get done. And if it doesn't get done, something else will get done. And it's okay. Yeah. I am not in a life-saving situation.
Yeah.
Most of my stuff can really be okay. And it usually is. Sometimes it's better.
Yeah.
Because I'm not running around like a crazy person trying to control everything. So there's something in there, I think, to be said around, we have this assumption that we can control.
Yeah.
And that really isn't true.
Yeah.
Most of it you're not really controlling.
Absolutely.
The only thing you can control is yourself.
And that's what I tell my kids a lot. Like, you can't control what they're doing. You can't control what they do to you. You can control how you react to it. And so having to instill that in my kids has been an excellent reminder for myself.
Very
because
true.
Like, I can't control the world that we live in.
No.
I can't control the circumstances that we're in. I can control how I respond to it and whether I let something beat me down or whether I let it lift me up.
Well, exactly. You can control the message that you tell yourself. So one thing I do on purpose on Mondays, it kind of annoys some people, but it's really effective for me, is I refuse to be one of those like, oh God, it's Monday. Okay, like Sunday night, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But when I'm on to Monday and I see my team and I go, happy Monday. Hey, it's an opportunity to have a great week. Like you get to start over now. And And it's a choice, right? It's that message you tell yourself, and it's pretty powerful. And I do this too. I lay in bed and I go, okay, I've got a lot going on right now. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of change going on in our organization right now. And I literally pause to remind myself in those moments. I go, it's going to pass. It's going to get better. It's all going to be okay. It always works out. It always does. So I'm refusing to let this get me down. I'm refusing to let it, and I'm not perfect at it.
Yeah.
I got to apologize to somebody tomorrow because I was a little snippy yesterday. I was like, oh.
It happens.
But it happens. But how you tell yourself what's going on, the message you tell yourself is super important, because being a business owner, I'm sure you feel that, like, it's lonely and we isolate. We tend to kind of forget that we all experience a lot of the same stuff, and all of us feel like we don't have it figured out, kind of that feeling like, oh, if they find, the imposter syndrome, right?
Sure.
We all suffer from that.
Yeah,
That's not
if they find me
unique,
out.
right?
Yeah.
They're going to find out I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't. I'm learning. I try to do better when I know better, and that's really that's where I come from, and I try to give grace where it's needed, and but it's the message you tell yourself day in and day out of really makes a big difference in how you view things, and taking time to celebrate, and take time to celebrate the crazy, because those are where the best stories are.
Right.
The best stories come from when things don't happen as they should. The best stories are the holiday meals where, something gets burned and somebody's throwing something against the room. Those are the stories that you tell, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like making space for that, because sometimes I think, there's this pressure of getting things done. Are you doing enough?
are you having a productive day?
Are you right? Did you get it all done? Why are you sitting there? What and I think you're right. I think that's making space for whatever it is that comes in. And my parents are elderly now, and I watch them, and they're in a different season, right? And my mom will say to me, don't miss out what you're going through right now. I know it's stressful.
Yeah.
But this is some of the best part of your life. And I remind myself, I'm like, that's so beautiful, because it's mindset. Like, we just get into this, like, oh my goodness, I can't do it, it's overwhelming. And I'm like, okay, so what if it's overwhelming?
Yeah.
Interesting. This is kind of interesting.
This
Let's
is crazy.
take a look at it.
What are we doing?
I mean, what do I want to do? How do I want to respond to it?
Yeah.
And that is the power of, how do I talk to myself? How am I with myself? And I started doing this thing for now just 1 week, where I wake up and I say to myself, something amazing is going to happen today. Something amazing is going to happen today. And you know what? Something amazing happens every day.
There you go.
it does.
I love that.
Only
just
because
have
I'm
to
looking
notice.
for it.
Exactly.
I've acknowledged it.
You've set the expectation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, something amazing did happen.
Yeah. And that's perfect. So I've been on a kind of a journey of biographies this month. And what I'm finding, I read Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery. And I'm thinking that this is going to be a story, about Booker T. Washington and his life. And it was. But his life's work was empowerment, really, when it comes down to the core of it. I mean, he started the Tuskegee Institute after deciding that he was going to be educated without ever knowing what that really meant, because he didn't have examples of it. But he heard that there was a school. There was a school that he could trade tuition, he could trade work for tuition, and he could get an education. And he knew he wanted to be educated. And so he went to work for the lady that none of his friends wanted to work for, because she was mean. And when he got there, it's not that she was mean, she had exacting standards. And not everyone wanted to be held to exacting standards. Sure. And so he learned from her, because that was the job that he could get, that he could earn the most money so that he could get to this school, right? And he was just trying to earn enough so that he could make the trip, because he was in West Virginia, the school's in Virginia, and it's a long way for him to go. And so he, rather than looking at his circumstances like the other boys did, like, she's mean, nothing's ever good enough for her, it was, I'm going to learn how to be good enough for her, because I need to get to the school. And so he made enough money to get there, to get to the town that he needed to get to, but he didn't have enough for lodgings. And so he slept under a sidewalk because that was the only protected. He found a little hole under the sidewalk, and he slept under that until he could get to the school. And she looks at this boy who is obviously very poor, and he didn't have any sort of credentials or anyone speaking on his behalf. He just shows up and he's like, I want to learn. And she's like, okay, wait here. And she puts him in a room, and he's looking around the room. She leaves him there for a while, and he's like, all right, trying to kind of process this. And she comes back and she's like, can you sweep? And he's like, yes, I can. And he kind of figures that his life depends on him doing a good job. She finally came back to talk to him. So he sweeps this room and he cleans it to perfection, as he was trained by the woman that no one else wanted to work for. And at that school, he learned how to empower himself to be better. And he took that out in the world to help other people who were recently freed slaves, who are sharecroppers, who never knew how to do it on their own. And it's just an amazing story. He has the gospel of the toothbrush, and like the change you can see in someone just by them learning the value of the toothbrush. It's such an amazing story, and I highly recommend you reading about it. It's fantastic. But you guys all learned how to do this from a passion and from a drive, kind of like Booker T. Washington did. Like he just knew he had to, without even knowing what it looked like. And you stepped into your husband's business because he needed you to. You stepped into a new world because you needed to for yourself and for your mission and discovery and helping others. And I think that that's just a beautiful trajectory. I mean, what does that look like when you're starting, though? I mean, we see it now where you're at a level of success that you can now give back. But when you were in early days,
it's like, hard. It's hard.
I tried to look it up, and it's all coming from male perspectives.
Yeah.
And the way men deal with stress. And you ladies sort of spoke to that it's lonely in that position.
It is lonely because you feel, you're your own worst critic often. Yeah. So I think you hang on to the failures probably more than you should, and you're very critical of yourself. And I tried to. I mean, it was hard because you just, especially as you're building a business and it's financially taxing. There's no such thing as overnight success. I always laugh when people are like, "Oh, look at what you've done." I was like, "Yeah, the overnight success, 10 years in the making." Yeah. I mean, it's a myth again. Yeah. But it's really, you can't get too swept up in because it always takes longer than you think it's going to take, right? You go, okay, I'm going to build this business, and then by 3 years, I'm going to be profitable. And it's going to take twice as long, at least, than you think it's going to take. And that's okay, because you don't know what you don't know when you're getting in. Yeah. And, really, it's just the getting back up day after day, even when you don't feel like it. And, evaluating like, okay, what did I do well? What worked? What didn't work? What did I learn from that? Most of what I've tackled or dealt with has been, especially with the failures, with the bad decisions that you make. Yeah. Or the things that didn't work out quite how you planned, whether it was your bad decision or just bad circumstance. Yeah. What can you take from that and learn and make it positive? So I'm not a optimistic person that's unrealistic. I'm realistic in my optimism, but I choose to always find the silver lining of like, okay, that was awful. Yeah. But what can I learn from that so that I'm stronger and wiser and better from those circumstances? Because otherwise it's not worth it. Yeah. Right? You don't do, at least you don't do this for money. That's not your driver, right? Money helps. Money keeps your business afloat so that you can't have a business if you're not making a profit, because then you can't pay the people. But that's not the driver. It's a marker that you're doing things right, but it's not the only marker, and it shouldn't be the only drive. Yeah. But it's hard. Yeah. It's hard, and it takes you have to just keep getting up and keep going and learn from what you're doing and seek education. Like once you get done with college or professional school or whatever it's hard because nobody's giving you assignments anymore. Yeah. Nobody's like, make sure you read this book. Right. And so a big reason of how Brian and I catapulted to the next level of success or even being able to maintain what we were doing was realizing we needed to learn how to be good leaders. Yeah. Because people go, oh, you're born a leader. No, you're not. Yeah. You need to learn skills. And so we realized we were failing our team. We weren't leading them properly and the business was suffering. So we dug in and like, we've got learning to do. Yeah. So on top of running the business, we learned, and I try to read or do Audible. I'm into the Audible books when I'm driving. Yeah. And I try to mix in leadership books on top of, fun books and just keep learning from other people, learn from kind of what you're doing, like learn from other people that have gone there before you and listen to podcasts about, now podcasts are great. We didn't have those 20 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, you just, cause it's hard. It's just hard. Yeah. And you don't ever go, I'm here. And that's a false expectation too. Yeah. That I think you will set yourself up for disappointment if you think that there's going to be a day where you go, I made it.
Yeah, right. We're good.
At least I haven't found that to be true, right? Because you just keep discovering, you keep learning more. And once you master something, there's a whole other pile of stuff you had no idea you were going to have to figure out. Yeah. I've mastered some of the easy stuff now. Now it's easy. Yeah. But now I've got stumbling blocks that I could have never dreamed of. Yeah. And I go, oh, good thing we learned that stuff, because now that stuff I can handle, and I've got these bigger mountains to climb. Yeah. So it's just, there is no end to the climb, I don't think. Yeah. Not that I've found. Yeah.
And my business is yours 10 years old?
20.
Oh, goodness. You're amazing. I mean, mine 20. Is 5. Yeah. So as you're talking, I'm like, oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Because it is. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because I think it's that false expectation sometimes that people will get into it. I mean, I started my business in my later years. So I already had, I had my funding. I knew I was going to invest this much in it. So there's a really big safety net for me there. Okay. But I'm telling you, during COVID, and I mean, 5 years is still young. Yeah. And many, many days I am by myself. And, and I'm open about it. Look, you can go on my social media right now and all you see, I'm having fun. It's all about me having fun, because I am having fun in that aspect. Yeah. All behind the scenes, it is a lot of, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right, who can I even ask? Because there's a fear sometimes of even, if I would say to myself, wow, I had a really slow month, I'm scared that everybody else had a great month. Yeah. Right? There's that kind of, am I doing it wrong? And finally I was like, I started talking to other business owners, and they were saying the same thing. And I'm like, thank you for saying that. Because we get into this spot where I think it's me. Yeah. Good and bad. I mean, it is me, because I'm running the business. Yeah. But, there's a lot of things, like we talked to before, that it's not just me. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty blown over if I'm like, oh, it's all about me. It's not. There are conditions that are happening. And so I think even hearing, Stephanie, what you're sharing 20 years into this, I mean, I am having that experience. It takes twice as long. It is not easy. There are things that I enjoy more than others that I find easy. Sure. But there are things that I'm like, oh gosh, I really don't want to do that, but you got to do it. Yeah. And that is, yes, it's character building. I know people say that.
Doing the hard things.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, great. But you got to do it. And I think that, as far as trying to just learn and learn, that's what I love. I wanted to learn how to run a business. And so there are often times where I'm like, well, you're learning how to run a business right now.
That's it.
You looked at your balance sheet. You're learning how to run a business. Yeah. So what are you going to do do about it? And I mean, I've had days where I'm like, I'm shutting the whole thing. There's days where I'm like,
we're all done.
Guess what, everybody? Yeah. It's going away. Yep. So we're just shutting it down. And I'm like, really? The pendulum starts to swing the other way. And now I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, what's the next pivot going to be? Yeah. Because I want to rise to the challenge. I want to try something different. There's going to be a whole other load of learning that's going to happen that I am actually very excited about.
Yeah.
And then keep on going.
Yes.
But I think your words are things that, I would love to talk to more people about, which is 5 years is a baby.
Yeah.
5 years is a baby. I did so many things wrong because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I probably won't do those things again. And when a baby starts to learn to walk, how many times do they fall?
Yeah.
That's how they learn.
Yeah.
That's how we learn as humans.
Absolutely.
And there's no shame in that. And I think sometimes I do that to myself to say, why did I do that? Or I should have done that. It's like, well, you didn't know. Now you know. And there's a lot of self-forgiveness there too, and empowerment.
Yeah.
And, I think the story that you brought up of Booker T. Washington, it could never be so amazing as what he did. He really had a lot more challenges than me. What it brings up for me is that each of us have a lineage. We have our ancestors, our families that, in some way or another, they have all contributed to you being here right now.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I love, and it says, I am my ancestors' wildest dream.
Yeah.
And it's true. They
really
could
is.
never, if you think back to however many generations ago.
Yeah.
And if they could see you now, and, maybe they're here to hold you up. And I think that's something that I call up for myself, is to think, oh my gosh, all these people that worked in a very different situation that are now here and they're holding me up.
Yeah.
Well, that should get you up in the morning.
Yeah.
Because you really have a responsibility to that. Because that's a beautiful gift.
It is.
And I think sometimes, and you can probably hear my talking, I'm like this. Like one day I'm like,
yes.
I can't do this. Next day I'm like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I think that's the life of what owning a business is.
Yeah. And I think, and it's sometimes it's just a matter of recognizing it and going, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You throw yourself a little pity party every now and then and go like, why do I have to deal with this? And why do I? And I go,
for sure.
Okay. Because that's what I've been chosen to do. So put your big girl panties on and deal with it. And, and recognizing what kind of gives me the strength to push through those hard times where you go, do I really want to do this? Wouldn't it be easier to just go be an employee somewhere?
Right.
Is when I meet with or talk to a younger woman or whatever that comes up to me and says, wow, you've inspired me to do, and that is a huge compliment, burden, all of the things. Yeah. And I feel that responsibility and I go, okay, I'm gonna brush off my self-doubt and I'm gonna finish up my pity party and recognize that I am very blessed and I've come through all these challenges and I've learned a lot, and now it's my responsibility to pass that learning on and that wisdom and enjoy, looking back and sharing the stories and sharing the struggles and being able to laugh about them, about what were we thinking? We had no idea what we were doing.
Right.
And if you knew then what you know now, you wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't have taken the risk.
Yeah.
But, but taking that risk, you will not find any great reward without taking that great risk. Otherwise it's just mediocrity.
Yeah.
And I wasn't born for mediocrity. Yeah. None of us were.
My choir director had a funny lesson that he wanted all of us to know, and that was never be mediocre. Absolutely avoid mediocrity at all costs because it's forgettable. You can be the worst at something and everyone will remember you. You can be the best at something and everyone will remember you. But if you're mediocre, you're completely forgettable.
Absolutely.
But we have no mediocrity here today. We have amazing women that have joined us. I hope that you all have enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, Susan, for being here. I can't shake your hand, but thank you, Stephanie, for being
Absolutely.
here.
This was great.
It's been such a blessing to have this conversation with you. I really appreciate it. Check out Solar Stik's website and go down to WildHeart. These are amazing female-run businesses in our area, but they're just amazing businesses, to be honest. And I just want to go through again. We We have lots of amazing female-run businesses here in St. Augustine. We've got Pink Stork, run by Amy Upchurch. We've got Renee Unsworth with Totally St. Augustine. Spice and Tea Exchange, run by Colleen Mesner. Hopeful Handbags is Kathleen Miner. Blue Water Jewelers, go sparkle with Nicole Nettles. And if you need a cocktail because you're having a rough day, go check out Sailbird Distilling Company with Susan Lieberman. These are all amazing female
Which is right around the corner from Solar Stik.
Right.
So.
Cool. So you guys have cocktail hour now, right?
We do.
Totally covered. They just released a moonshine. That's all female run moonshine. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, lots of fun stuff. Thank you all for being here. Thank you,
Absolutely.
ladies.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night. We're going to have the Blevins boys in studio, so it'll be a boys club, and I'm just sitting in and trying to corral it tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great night. Bye.